3 o'clock on a Friday. You made it. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Lots to get to on today's program. Breaking Gamecock women's basketball news that we'll discuss. Well, I guess it's not really Gamecock women's basketball news anymore, is it?
Not anymore.
No. Indirect Gamecock women's basketball news. If you've just tuned in, we'll give you that in a second. I'd say our good buddy. We've had him on the show a couple times, but he's Elijah's good buddy. Teron Davenport covers the Titans and the NFL for ESPN. He'll be with us coming up here, bottom of the hour. This is written in really heavy pencil because I guess there's an opportunity that Teron may need to go do his job.
A long shot. Yeah, Cam Ward had his press conference today at 2 our time, and I don't think it's going to run 90 minutes, but
hey, you never know.
You never know. He's let me aware.
Okay.
That's what he was doing beforehand. I think we should still be good. Unless Cam Ward decides to bring his copy of War and Peace and read it verbatim.
My wife read War and Peace once. It took her 6 months. Just because she didn't read it straight through. I was like, yes. I've never read War and Peace.
I haven't either, but I do know it's a heavy read.
It's a big book.
Yeah, large book.
It's a big, but hey, it's close. Hey.
Confused for each other all the time.
Boston, Charleston, historic colonial harbor towns, right? It's almost the same kind of.
The history's there.
Yeah, it's almost the same. But anyway.
How about new?
Well, nice. You got some more.
Oh,
Elijah's been having fun. Now Elijah's when you get a new toy and you're finding new ways to play with it. So we'll have some fun with some of the sound effects that Coach Campbell has come up with.
You're a monster.
Now, see, here's the thing. If you start doing too much of this, then I'm going to go get some, and then that's what this show's going to turn into.
It's just going to be audio.
You realize that? Because I got a bunch of them in my head. I use them all the time. If we just start, getting the real ones instead of the ones I say, and it's a gray area. How gray? Charcoal. Things like that.
Can be incorporated.
We're in for a long show every day.
I learned a new skill in terms of putting these things in here, and I have just been drunk with power.
Gamecock baseball gets back at it tonight. 6:30 first pitch up in Lexington. 6:15 airtime. Carolina really needs another series victory. Again, any chance of salvaging this season and getting into national postseason play is fully contingent on the team winning every series it has left, basically. I don't know if there's any other way to put it, man.
If you want any type of offseason.
Yeah.
That's how slim the chances are at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think the general consensus and the folks we've spoken with says that South Carolina needs to be at the 13-17 mark at the end of 30 conference games. That really means that not only do you have to win the rest of these series, at some point you got to sweep one up.
Yeah, you got to bring your brooms to one of those. A Swiffer won't do it.
Well, man, those things rip up after a couple of minutes. So you need one of those big, heavy-duty straw kinds. Anyway, we'll touch on some baseball for you a little bit later on, drive around the SEC. Speaking of Kentucky, away from their baseball team during the drive around later on this afternoon, a very interesting development within their athletics department that I think could catch on. Could. We'll discuss later, not at this point. No Nick Imanwari last night. I know that disappoints a lot of folks around here. As you and I talked about, Elijah, nothing really surprises you anymore. And I had a friend text me this morning and ask if I thought that, what happened at the bowl game might have had any impact. And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I don't think so.
That was almost immediately forgotten by everybody. If it stuck in your craw for a couple of days, so be it. But I assure you, NFL types understand that was a bit of a miscommunication. The film is there. The combine workouts are there. The interviews have been good. The Carolina Pro Day stuff that he at least was involved in was good. He's good, and there are reasons that multiple draft analysts had him last night as the number one safety on the board. When Baltimore came up at 27, I did think, all right, are we going to hear his name here? Because we knew they were looking for immediate safety help. Baltimore basically admitted as much without admitting it. And they chose Malachi Starks, who for most of the run-up had been the number one safety on the board.
Until the combine.
Yeah. And you know what? In a lot of ways, they're 1A, 1B, right? I don't know that this is a 1-2 and there's a massive gap in separation. For whatever reasons, I don't know them. The Baltimore Ravens simply felt that Malachi Starks checked all the boxes they wanted. Does it mean that Nick didn't? I don't think so. Nick even alluded to this, and I'm not saying this is part of it, but when Nick joined Elijah and me on Wednesday, you know, he kind of said, yeah, if I was a Georgia or Bama guy, like I'm surefire first round. He's probably right. You
I
know?
agree with that.
And is that some type of bias? Yeah, not against South Carolina.
But pro Georgia,
but just
Alabama.
more for where Georgia is these days, yeah, or Alabama. But in this case, Georgia and Malachi Starks, who, again, is good and is going to slot right in. I think Nick is today the number 2 or 3 rated prospect still on the board. He's going tonight, all right? And he's going to go, I would think, in the first 10 picks of the second round. Again, a lot of this is need. And to go back to a buddy that texted me, I said, no, this was need-based. And the one spot where there was a big-time safety that was going to need to go in and start right away, I suppose, Elijah, that the Ravens, again, just felt that Starks was more ready. I don't know that I think teams feel like, man, if there is somebody on one of the lines that we feel is absolutely just elite, go get him first, because the odds of trying to develop somebody at that spot, you know, at a D tackle or any offensive line spot, really, you know, by somebody you get in the 5th round. Yes, you can develop them, and yes, many guys will be good at that. But man, when you get one in the first round, or you know there's a first round talent from one of those guys, they just look at each other and go, we need one of those too.
The hit rate on offensive linemen in the first round is so high.
It is.
Too.
It is.
Going into last year, at least, in terms of percentage of players drafted in the first round by position that either make, Pro Bowls or all pros.
Yeah.
It's very high for linemen in the first round.
You and I touched on this a little bit, and we saved some of it for air when we talk. Sometimes Elijah and I'll look down at my phone. I'm like, all right, we probably should have saved that, because like this morning we went 40-something minutes as we prepared for our show, which is fine.
We have fun.
Yeah. But I don't think you agreed with me, and not that I'm here to pick a fight, but maybe I am. You don't know. I felt like the Travis Hunter trade not derailed the rest of the first round, but it did, I feel, have a significant impact in altering a lot of the thinking in the first round. And maybe just because, and it could just be me and my level of subjectivity in looking at all the mocks and like, well, now y'all screwed it all up. Or maybe I was just mad because Ashton Jeanty went to a team in my division.
I would be mad about that. And teaming up with Brock Bowers. They have a competent quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the AFC West got a lot better last night, man.
It did. Even though the Chargers, I thought, maybe had the most questionable first-round pick.
Perhaps.
Because I don't know why you signed Najee Harris to draft a running back in the first round. There are plenty of good running backs available later in this draft.
I told you, I just think that is Jim Harbaugh being old-school football coach Jim Harbaugh, that we're going to control the line of scrimmage through our run game, and we'll just pound people to death. And now I've got 2 dudes that can do it. They'll find some further help for Justin Herbert where they need it. But I think they're going to take a significant step next year. I told you, I'm not predicting this, because if you said gun to head, Jay, who do you think wins the AFC West in 2025? I will still tell you the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Broncos and the Chargers made the playoffs last year. The Chiefs went to the Super Bowl last year. So, again, I get it. Don't get me twisted here. But now the Raiders have brought in, the revitalized Geno Smith. They've brought in Super Bowl champion coach Pete Carroll and national champion coach Pete Carroll, who players adore, right? Youngest 70-whatever-year-old in the history of football.
Of mankind, maybe.
Maybe. Him and like
spry man.
Jack
for that age.
LaLanne, that like exercise dude from back in the day.
We give him a run for his money,
Yeah.
but
You know.
Pete exudes youth, even in his non-youthful years.
Yeah, you mentioned Brock Bowers, I think, is on his way, it feels like, to becoming the next version of a Gronk or a Kelsey, that just, I'm better than you at this position. And there's a lot of good ones out there now. You know, then you just add a tailback who ran for, 3,300 yards his last 2 years of college ball.
I think he's a little closer to a bajillion.
You know, yeah, I mean, actually, yeah, what did he run for? Because he ran for 20. He ran for 26 alone last year.
We'll pull up the last 2 years.
So, you know what?
He was
actually,
in the ballpark
you know what?
of
I've got
breaking Barry
Hampton's
Sanders'
numbers.
record.
I've got Hampton's numbers in my head for like 3,300. Yeah, Ginty was more like 4,000.
Like Ginty, 2,600 this past year, plus one, and 1,347.
Yeah, so like 4,000 for him. Yeah, I got Hampton's numbers in my head.
Yeah, almost 4,000 yards in the last 2 years.
So the AFC West yesterday added 2 first-round tailbacks that combined for more than 7,000 yards in their last 2 seasons of college football. That's really impressive.
That's wild.
But Denver went and got the maybe the best defensive back in the country, so that helps.
The guy at least won the Thorpe Award for the best defensive
That's
back.
right. Whether he's the best or not is maybe more a matter of debate. And the Chiefs did a good thing too. You know, I think that they made a solid move letting Philadelphia go up. I like Josh Simmons. Again, fantastic offensive lineman. Chiefs got a little bit better, and now we'll see what happens. But anyway, no Nickem and Worry. We should hear Nick's name tonight. I think we will hear TJ Sanders tonight. I think there's a good possibility that we hear Kyle Kennard's name tonight. You were talking about that?
I think we can. I think
so.
that's a possibility.
Yeah, and we'll see what Langston thinks of that and what Tehran thinks about that. So lots to do. Hit us up with your thoughts on what's going on. We'll come back. I'm not trying to bury the lead or anything like that, but we got a lot of draft stuff to get to. But on the other side, if you haven't heard, Mylasia Fulwiley has found her landing spot, and it will make some folk around here uncomfortable. We'll discuss. That's right. We'll discuss when the postgame show returns. All right, welcome back in. Postgame Show rolling on here on a Friday afternoon. If my math is correct, this is the final Friday of the month.
You are correct.
Thank you.
I think.
It is. Because there's only 30 days in this month, and there's 7 days until the next Friday, which would mean it would be May.
Well done.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
What you doing math?
It's not really math. It's kind of math.
It involves counting.
Yeah, there's numbers. Speaking of numbers, don't know what the NIL numbers will look like. The mileage is probably nearly 1,000. But Malaysia Fulwiley is leaving home. Could do a Beatles thing if you want to there, but we're not.
If we could. Great album.
But she is heading to LSU.
Who?
And this is going to, I think this is going to get a few folks around here a little more upset than it otherwise might have. I mentioned, for those just tuning in, I did the segment at the end of the halftime show with Terry and Tyler. And as I immediately processed this, I kind of said in my own mind, I don't believe there is a more provocative landing spot than LSU. In fact, I would rate it, even the next two in some form would probably be Texas or Clemson.
Texas is solely off of what happened this year.
Yes.
Where you played them
Yes.
4 times and you beat them in a coin toss.
And Clemson speaks for itself. But the thing about Clemson, when I say provocative in terms of just, what it might mean, look, you saw Texas 4 times last year. That's rare. But you did. And you could do that with LSU. Technically, I don't know what we don't have next year's schedule yet, do we?
Nope. Not the complete schedule.
All right. I don't know if they'll play. They only played once the last couple of years, right?
Uh-huh. That hasn't been their home and home partner.
So I don't know if that changes this year. I don't know how any of it works, man.
It should.
I know.
If it doesn't, it should.
But with Clemson, you only see Clemson once. You see them in December. You could obviously see Clemson again in a national tournament, but that's it. And with LSU, again, you'll see them at least once in the regular season, but there's every reason to believe you could see them again in a tournament based on how the last few seasons have gone. And there's a heavy reason to believe you could see them in the national tournament just based on how the two teams play. It also surprised me a little bit in that it's not an Under Armour school. I don't know what that means for her deal with Under Armour. I don't know. I'm sure they had to at least call, and maybe they just kind of hit the pause button until she gets to the WNBA. Yeah, I don't know. But this is look, is it the best place she could go land in terms of how she plays and who, whatever else? Yeah. I don't know what kind of conversations she may have had with other schools at the highest level. We speculated about a few that were Under Armour schools that are also excellent at women's basketball. Notre Dame and Maryland, primarily looking in your direction. I don't know how many of you might agree with me, and I'm not saying she did it solely to poke the bear.
No.
But the bear is getting poked.
Yeah. I mean, she's going to make a lot of money to poke the bear.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. LSU spends a lot of money in women's college basketball.
They do.
A lot.
They have the money to spend, and they don't mind spending it.
And when schools have a fixed amount of money they can spend on talent acquisition, and you look what South Carolina did, Tanai Latson didn't come here for free.
Right.
Neither did Medina Okot. Neither did anybody that you signed out of high school in what is one of the best signing classes in America. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to give raises to the players that you have on the floor right now. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there may be some additional funds given to Raven Johnson too, so she can come back to make the deal for her to come back a little more enticing. I don't know that, but if there was, then you can see how there's not as much money to go around. Whereas LSU lost a lot of players in the portal. They could probably afford to give Malaysia a little bit more. That's kind of where I'm thinking this went, was that there was a situation where LSU had a lot lying around, and a lot to be able to give to Lay that maybe she couldn't have gotten here with the depth of this lineup and being able to keep everybody together.
By the way, our good friend Reggie Anderson listening, as he often does. Thank you, Reg. Appreciate you. Hope you're well.
What's up, Reggie?
Reggie says, don't know when they play LSU, but ABC execs just called ESPN to tell them we got this one. And then he added,
Dibs.
Or Sankey did.
I'm sure Greg's making some calls.
Listen, again, that's why I say this is provocative. And I don't mean that in a solely kind of negative term. And there are other adjectives and labels that we could place upon this now, but it takes what's already an intense, Tyler hit me and said, is it a rivalry if the other team doesn't win? Yeah, it's certainly become a must-watch matchup. South Carolina has had the benefit of winning these games, and South Carolina silenced the Maravich Center a couple of seasons ago.
In dramatic fashion.
Almost funeral-like at that point. But this takes an already intense matchup, if not rivalry, and ratchets it up a couple of notches, man.
Yeah, even though LSU has not beaten South Carolina in a long, long time, I still consider it an emotional rivalry. Yeah, I mean, they don't love each other. Let's just say these programs do not care much for one another, and they want to beat each other very badly. Kim Mulkey's great at dismissing it. I mean, after the game this year at CLA, she was kind of asked about that, and she went on to say, it doesn't matter. I don't lose sleep over not being able to beat one school, and my BS detector almost broke.
Right.
I mean, I could feel it in my body, start to shake because it's trying to compute how much BS is loaded into that statement, and it just broke. It doesn't work anymore. I can't detect when someone's lying to me anymore because I got lied to so hard in that press conference. I know it eats at her. I know it bothers her when she can't beat them because that not being able to beat Dawn Staley in South Carolina has kept LSU from winning SEC championships. So, yeah, I think it bothers her. The national championship can mean one thing, but there's always going to be you won that national championship without having to beat South Carolina.
Yeah.
That's the one thing she hasn't been able to do since taking that job in Baton Rouge.
So, how much this elevates LSU to get even closer to South Carolina, I could not on Friday, April the 25th, really begin to tell you. And looking at what LSU's roster looks like, we've joked this week that, again, Elijah, to go back, Elijah in January, you get to say Happy New Year to Elijah for a week.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's just New Year. So Elijah this week to apply the same principle. There's no longer any way too early top 25s. There's just too early top 25s.
Yep.
But South Carolina's number one in basically all of them. LSU's not far behind. And again, Kim Mulkey is an excellent coach. She has excellent talent. She's had an exodus of a few players. So that's why I say I haven't really had the time to look and see. We do know, because of what we do for our jobs, and those of you listening that follow, most of you that follow Carolina, know that Carolina has a hell of a team that's coming back and great players that are coming in. So does this elevate LSU, or does it keep LSU where they were? Either way, they're still going to be very good. And for those who are still pained by the fact that Malaysia left, some of you want to blame her. Some of you want to blame coach. Some of you blame a broken system that allows for an easy transfer and a heavy payday. All of the above, and I say blame, place responsibility could be a nicer way to put it. I don't know that there's blame here. We've talked a lot about what Malaysia can do and that she is a star, and the things that she doesn't do well enough that frustrated her Hall of Fame head coach.
There were some flaws there.
And I think her Hall of Fame head coach, who, as we often mention, is truly one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game, continually got frustrated by some of the things that point guards must do at the most basic, fundamental level. Number one being protect the basketball.
Yeah, and you could tell when she was in the doghouse.
Yeah.
There were some games where she didn't play more than 10 minutes.
Right. And as we said, again, take this as you will. I'll say this, then we're going to hit the break. Malaysia Fulwiley played the 7th most minutes last season. And she did a lot of great things, including leading the team in steals, because she is that kind of player, in the 7th most minutes. But she also, in that same amount of time while playing for Carolina, led the team in turnovers.
There was a yin and yang to her game.
Yeah. And it's not really something where Dawn wants that ratio to be 1-to-1. So
should not be that evenly yoked.
No, not for that. Take it all as you will, but Mylasia Fulwiley is an LSU Tiger for a couple of years. We'll see what happens after that. Back to the draft. Teron Davenport covering the draft for ESPN. Elijah's buddy from Nashville will be with us when the postgame show returns. Time to get back into the draft. Welcome on to the program, ESPN's Teron Davenport, based in Nashville. Elijah probably still owes him money.
Probably. That's why I left.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'll never tell Teron my address. He'll find me.
Teron, just call me after the show. I'll make sure that you get everything you need. How are you, sir?
No.
I know you've been busy.
Hey, yeah, definitely. It's been a great day, man. You got to see a nice new beginning for this organization. So, yeah, man, it's been good.
Well, unfortunately, it feels like from a lot of people's perspective, Cam Ward did not get the attention he deserved as a number one pick, and what a great story. So I know you'll begin to tell more of that, but this is a young man who obviously just vaulted up the charts and then continued to do so even during the draft process. When did the Titans ultimately decide this is our quarterback?
Well, it's been, I think really the seeds for it was planted back at the combine when they first met him, but it's just grown and grown. And the main time where they made that decision was probably when he came for the pro day, for the visit. That's really when it stood out. And Cam said that a month ago he reached out to Warren Moon about the jersey, so he more or less knew that he was going to be there. So I would say probably within the past month.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, when I saw the betting market was at like minus 20,000 for him to be taken first, I was like, yeah, I think it's a done deal. But one thing that took a lot of us by surprise was the Titans' divisional rival trading up to number 2, giving away some picks this year and a first next year to take Travis Hunter. The Jags don't necessarily have a history of winning. This is certainly a bold move. Do you think the jump to go to 2 to take Travis Hunter is worth giving up next year's first?
Well, it's a unique circumstance. And I think when you look at this, it's basically a buy one, get one free. And I've always said, buy one, get one free is for me. So I get what they're doing because you're getting a guy who could fill a need as a complimentary receiver to Brian Thomas and maybe even be a number one, a 1B, so to speak, and then turn around and be a secondary corner to Tyson Campbell. So it fills both needs. He's a guy that has proven before that he could do what hasn't been done, and I wouldn't doubt him. So to me, yeah, it's value, and he's a playmaker. He's dynamic on both sides of the field.
Teron, how close at any point were the Titans to taking Abdul Carter, who ultimately went 3 to the Giants? And the reason I ask is because as Elijah and I discussed this, back, say, into the Super Bowl and into the college season as well, I'm like, man, Titans, you got 2 choices. You take Abdul Carter because he's going to come right in and just wreak havoc, or you trade it and you really build. So how much discussion? Well, you already mentioned to us about the when they kind of settled in on Cam, but was it Cam or Abdul Carter? Was it Cam or trade? What else was there?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, it was pretty much for the most part always Cam. Abdul Carter was a guy obviously they did homework on and they considered, but Cam has been the guy, and obviously the trade down option was something that was bounced around, and the reports of the offer the Giants made, but all along, once they really got their target on Ward, it's really been him or bust.
And one of the, I guess maybe not a surprise, but I think I was surprised a little bit to not see Nick Emenwari taken in the first round last night, just because he was mocked so high and he was so great at the combine. But Nick around here made a pretty big impact on his ability to really get better in coverage. I think that's maybe what made him a more enticing prospect in the NFL. But how early do you think we end up seeing Nick Emenwari get pulled off the board here in the second round tonight?
Yeah, I think he'll go. I mean, I would say within the first 10 picks. I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans took him at 35, although that's not the direction I would suggest going. I think when you look at a lot of it was the measurables, right, and what he was able to do as far as showing how at that size he could run so fast. Like, he's a very extravagant, elite-level athlete. Now it's just a matter of having that transfer over to the football field. And I think when you look at him, he's someone with his size and speed. Hey, you can match him up with a lot of these tight ends that are coming into the league that are basically just big receivers, because he's essentially a big corner or big DB, but the coverage skills, as you mentioned, that's where the improvement has to be made. The right scheme, I think he could be really good, but it just, like most of these prospects, that's what it boils down to, who uses them correctly.
Talking to Teron Davenport of ESPN. NFL draft continues tonight with rounds 2 and 3. All right, you do this for a living. You've been doing it for a while. So beyond the Titans, which is your regular beat, you cover the entire league. What else might have stood out to you last night? Someone that did or didn't? I know Shador's getting a lot of attention, but I'm not sure how many people are just blown away by that. I think maybe some of the chatter suggests that he should have gone, but whether it's that or something else, what stood out to you last night is maybe a bit of a surprise?
Yeah, well, Shamar Stewart, rather, going to the Bengals was interesting. I'll also say, Tyler Booker going to the Cowboys at 12 with Matthew Golden on the board. That one really surprised me. And just, frankly, the fact that Matthew Golden fell to Green Bay at 27, or I think it was 27, wherever it was, in the late 20s. That, like, if I'm Jordan Love, like, my belief in God has been reinforced if I'm Jordan Love. So, that's something that I think was a huge surprise. I felt Golden was a better receiver than Ted McMillan, Ibuka as well, who's really good. And I think you could also put into that with it, even though it was expected, it's still a surprise that Luther Burden has fallen to the second round. And I mean, coming in, like, that was my favorite receiver in this draft class. And bless the scouting agency that a lot of the NFL teams use, they had him as a top 5 prospect in August. So to see him, tumble down to the 30s, 33 on down is pretty intriguing.
And one of the things I think maybe might explain some of it, because I'm surprised to see Burden fall the first round too, is that there were 8 offensive linemen taken last night. And I think historically that's probably has one of the highest hit rates. But what type of demand was there around the league for kind of a premier offensive line this year? Because a lot of teams in the first round last night certainly bought in on it.
Yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of tackles. You saw interior linemen, too. And it's going to show you how the league, it just kind of goes in circles. The guards and the D tackles, the centers, those protecting the pocket from the inside out and those attacking the pocket from the inside as well. It shows you how the league goes in circles, and now that's a premium.
Yeah, 5 DTs went last night, too. So we'll talk to Langston. That's his position coming up in just a little bit. All right. Should we look for any surprises tonight? Anybody that you think, all right, that somebody's gonna pull something on us tonight that we're not expecting?
Yeah, I say to Mike Green, there's some background things that we don't need to get into it. It's not good. And I think somebody's still going to pull the trigger and take him early in the second round. And look, man, like, I'm not one to place a label on somebody and have it stay with them. I think everyone deserves opportunities despite shortcomings. And look, man, it's going to be interesting seeing where he goes, but I think there's going to be some people that overlook, what he has in his background and go ahead and take him. And, man, I wish that young man the best.
Teron, no, you got a lot to go do. Appreciate the time. We'll catch up with you again here soon when we can all breathe a little bit. But enjoy the rest of the weekend doing what you do, man. Thanks for the time.
All right, for sure. Appreciate you guys. Take it easy.
That's Teron Davenport. Catch his work at ESPN.com covering the Titans. _NFL if you want to follow along on Twitter.
He's been doing it for a while.
Yeah, he's fun, man. Great follow on Twitter too. His Twitter feed is filled with fact.
Oh,
I love it.
So much of what I have learned about football came from producing his podcast for 2 years. Like, because he does so many like X's and O's breakdowns on his show. And if you're not a Titans fan, because it's Titan centric, but if you're not a Titans fan,
there's a lot of NFL. There's just a lot of regular NFL on there, man. He's a good follow.
He breaks it down. That guy, he knows the game inside and out.
Yeah.
Anytime I talk to Teron, I try to be a sponge and just learn the game.
Again, check him out, _Davenport _ on Twitter, or if you want to call it X.
It's Twitter.
That's what I call it, too. Appreciate him. All right, lots more to do here. We'll continue staying with the draft. That's an interesting eyebrow raise on Mike Green, who is a very good football player.
And we were kind of talking about how we were surprised he wasn't taken last
I thought
night.
he'd be a first-rounder.
Yeah.
Now maybe there's a little more to the story. Well, we shall see. You're listening to the Postgame Show. 12 minutes in front of 4 o'clock here on a Friday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Thanks again to Teron Davenport for joining us. We could go an hour with him, man.
Teron's one of those people, too, that before you turn the mics on and you're just talking ball or whatever, you produce a pretty good show even when the mics are off.
How much money do you own? Yeah, you know what? Don't answer that.
Yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth right there. I can't get myself in any more trouble.
No, he's a good dude. Again, seriously, y'all check him out. _Davenport_NFL. Terrific follow on Twitter if you want some really good stuff on the NFL. And again, a lot of fact, a lot of stuff in there that is just it's good fact for you to chew on and then go dazzle your friends a little bit later on. He did make mention of Mike Green from. Now, Marshall started his career at Virginia to turn serious for a minute, and we were just looking, we don't want to play coy here, but I know you've just been doing a little bit of digging on what could, for some franchises, be a bit problematic.
Yeah, so I never read this or came across this until it was brought to my attention just in a group chat this morning. Obviously, a lot of my friends back at home are huge Tennessee Titan fans, and they were kind of debating amongst themselves today, like, should the Titans take Mike Green in the second round at 35? And someone ended up, in the conversation says, I'm surprised he fell to the first round. And I was like, I was too. And they're like, well, there are some allegations that are out there. I think that might be why. And then Teron mentioned that, so I was like, wait a minute. Let me do a little extra digging there. And there are two separate sexual assault allegations, one from when he was in high school, the other from when he was on the campus at the University of Virginia. Ultimately, he was dismissed from the team, and why he was dismissed from the team was never made public.
Right.
And the university has denied, when the Athletic reached out for comment, they denied to comment on it. So those are out there, and some of these NFL teams with their some of these NFL teams are better than the FBI at investigating things and getting things out of you. And I think they've done some digging, and if he continues to fall, especially if he falls out of even the second round, then it would tell you indirectly they found some things in their investigations that they didn't like.
If every yes, you make an excellent point. If every team in the National Football League, and this is an if at this point, obviously, passes on this young man twice, then yes, there is something beyond football, because
the talent is
the film. His film does not lie. This kid is a game wrecker.
Yeah,
there is no question.
17 sacks last year, led the country.
Yeah, I mean, this kid's but when you see just his movement, I mean, he's built. He doesn't look. I mean, there's so many edge guys these days that are probably more like 6'5". He's not quite that big or tall, but he's big. But the way he moves for a man his size, because he's 250 plus. I don't know exactly what, but I know he's reading about him, earlier in the week. I can pull it up. Hang on. Mike Green.
By looking at him, he's
6'3", 251. 6'3", 251. But he moves faster than that, and he can he can also drop back a little bit as an edge guy. I mean, he's got real skill. So yes, to your point, Elijah, should he go to the third round or even? I mean, and look, at this point, I don't know what the difference is other than just pay scale. If you were to not take him in the second round, I mean, at what point, I guess, does a team go, well, did we take a flyer in the fifth? I mean, what are we doing here? Like that kind of thing. I don't know how serious some of this stuff is, and I certainly do not make light of it. And I wonder, look, teams are always cautious about certain PR hits, as they should be. Are there any is there anything that could be used against him in a civil suit, where an employer, it wouldn't be party to it per se, but would at least have to be involved, or again, lose out on any time, with somebody like that? I don't know. I mean, there's a host of things, right? There's a host of things that are there, but the tape doesn't lie. This kid's very good. Very good. And a lot of people did think he would be a first-round guy. But it makes sense when you stop and process it. We simply can't do a first-round contract with this guy.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's probably, and that not probably was the consensus around the league.
Because somebody would have.
Seeing how far he falls, I think, isn't a total indicator of everything. But I think if he falls really, really far, I think it will reflect that the digging they did, all 32 teams, because who's not in the market for a good edge rusher?
Oh, yeah. You
Like,
always,
everybody
will take one. Yeah, absolutely.
If he falls incredibly far, I think that's going to be pretty reflective as to what these teams discovered once they did the digging.
Yeah. We'll talk to Langston coming up in a bit with a lot more on all kinds of stuff, including how many, D tackles went. And for those who've never heard Langston kind of reminisce about when he got drafted, I'm sure we'll do some of that, plus some Gamecock stuff. For me asking you, though, for Shedeur Sanders, were you at all surprised that it was Jackson Dart who was the other quarterback? Because yesterday the betting lines over under 2.5 quarterbacks in the first round, and it ended up being under, but it was Jackson Dart, not Shedeur Sanders.
And Dart had the higher or better odds to be the quarterback taken after Cam Ward. I'm not surprised if I'm the Giants. Would I have done that? No, because I think Shedeur Sanders is a safer bet.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what Shedeur Sanders is, an NFL prospect to me, is one of the more safer bets with not as high of a ceiling because he is so accurate, but he doesn't have some of the physical traits that the best quarterbacks in the NFL have right now. And I don't even think it's a slight to him that he's not in the first round. I don't think he's, I don't think he's some victim or some, result of teams just not liking his attitude. I just think there's just not that elite upside that someone wants in the first round. That being said, I still don't understand the Dart thing.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Hour 2 with Langston coming up. Y'all know I love telling you about integrated media. How you watching all these picks? How you watching, later on this fall? How you watching these guys play? That's the real important part, right? 803-948-8327. Now is a fantastic time for you to call integrated media. Get ahead of any kind of fall rush. I know it's just April. I get it. But listen, baseball season is here. If you like spring football, they're playing that. And if you don't, again, just get ahead of the rush. Maybe an outdoor system, right, where you can enjoy the sports and the weather and cook your burgers on the grill and not have to miss anything. I mean, seriously, doesn't that sound great? Or how about Wi-Fi that works everywhere for better streaming, better gaming, working from home, learning from home, home security? Listen, they're the best at home technology. If any of those things or all of those things are on your to-do list, 803-948-8327. Call Integrated Media. 4 o'clock on a Friday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the Postgame Show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, along with Coach Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. I am not a coach. I'm just some dude. And whoever you are, and you know who you are, we thank you for choosing to be with us. Langston Moore joining us here in just a second. Got a lot of draft to talk about, maybe some food. Maybe reminisce.
Always some food.
Yeah, maybe reminisce about a few things from back in the day. And I think later on I'm getting quizzed again.
That would be correct.
Uh-oh.
Not necessarily quizzed. Kind of.
It's like a pass-fail thing. Well, not even
really,
that.
only time will tell.
Yeah.
That was, I think I erroneously spoke yesterday when you said, how'd I do? Did I pass? And I should have responded, time will tell. Because I liked the responses.
Right.
But I think you were 0 for 1 on one of them. Which is the Panthers taking a defensive player.
Well, I kind of thought they would. But I like that McMillan kid, man. I told you, he reminds me of Alshon. Just throw him the ball, and he's going to catch it.
Large catch radius.
Yeah. And he just catches it. That's all. Like,
doesn't separate, but if you have him on the outside, I mean, Mike Evans doesn't separate a ton.
But you know what he does?
He catches the football.
Catches the ball.
And that's a trait I like in wide receivers.
I think you could. I mean, I'm serious, man. I really, I say I'm serious, but I think if you blindfolded Alshon, he's still going to catch the ball like 90% of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like everything.
He's got magnets in his hands.
He does,
There's a magnet
man.
in the ball.
That's what. And this McMillan kid reminds me of that. And he's built like Alshon. Just go get it. Just go get it. Always a pleasure to talk to our good friend Langston Moore. He is the former Gamecock D lineman, team captain, draft pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, husband, father, softball expert, barbecue aficionado, and again, travels the back roads of Texas going to, well, not anymore. He doesn't have to go to the softball events and tournaments anymore because his daughter's now playing college ball, but he joins us now to discuss the draft and more. How are you? Been a while. You doing all right?
I'm doing great, man. And just because somebody left the house doesn't mean I will not hit the road to go get a plate from somewhere up the road off 17 or 1 or something really dusty and desolate. If they're smoking some meat out there, I'll definitely still travel by myself. Don't need her for that, for sure. But I'm good, man.
I was, you and I were talking the other day off the air, and I told you I was down in Hilton Head last week and had just a fantastic low country seafood meal of grilled grouper over a bed of field peas and collards. And, whether it's Hilton Head, Beaufort County, or Charleston County or whatever, it was definitely low country South Carolina. It was all right.
Man, absolutely. It's always get your fill of everything from right there in the creek. Love going down there.
Good and fresh. You know what? Let's start with a little fun here. We've known each other now, you and I, a long time, and you've been a guest on this program. I'm going to go into the triple digits for sure. That's an easy guess. But for those who've never heard the Langston, and it's not like it's some kind of crazy story, but just reminiscing about where Langston Moore was, young Langston Moore. Fresh off Lou Holtz's team, hearing from Marvin Lewis and the Cincinnati Bengals. Where were you?
Well, first of all, you don't hear from Marvin Lewis. You hear from like an assistant coach, because when you're the first pick of the first overall pick of the 6th round, Jay, your mama still got to go to work the next day. Even though because it says the first, doesn't mean the money is the same. And that's what we tell the kids. You got to make sure. That's why you can't get the loan for the first round money is way different. Carson Palmer, who was the first overall pick that year, we both had something insane, but it wasn't a bank account at all. But nah, you get the call from the assistant coach. So again, I think at that time it was Jay Hayes, which again, the through line is he was a coach for Lou Holtz at Notre Dame, and he's a nephew. His nephew plays for the Lakers right now. He called and was like, yeah, we take you, which is a vastly different call because at that point I am PO'd, Jay. Again, back in the day, the draft used to be on Saturdays and Sundays, and it wasn't primetime TV. You just only had it on one channel, one iteration. You didn't have 4 different channels of this, so you had to wait around all day because, Jay, I was still in school taking classes at the illustrious University of South Carolina HRSM department, trying to make sure I graduated on time, still had classes. So I was actually getting kind of mad because it was Sunday afternoon. I'm trying to hit the road, hit 26, come back up here. And the phone calls are kind of trickling in, and that's kind of when you can gauge because there's some gamesmanship. So around the 4th round for myself, I got a couple calls from Seattle, and they're calling me, and there's Joe Schmo on the phone. Hey, Langston, what's going on? This is so-and-so from, and And that's how you can kind of tell. It's like, oh, these folks ain't kind of serious. They either A, try to, get somebody is in that room trying to fight for you to like, oh, this kid from South Carolina that's, barely 6 foot tall, this is the one we want. Or, and they lose that battle and somebody else gets the pick at that time, which happened in my case. Or they're trying to block the phone call from somebody else. Because again, there was call waiting and different things back in the day, Jay, but you could block
You're trying to keep your line busy? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you jam the line. But again, so, I mean, I'd rather you just pick me at 4 and send me to Seattle. But so my whole point was, got the phone call. I forgot Cincinnati was a team, even though my mom, from Southern Ohio. So that shows you at that point, I was just like, man, I'm ready to go. So immediately you start looking up everybody who's on the team. Okay, he's old. I got this dude. And of course, expectation versus reality, because the next weekend you have the rookie camp and you get to see, oh man, this 10-year dude is really good, even though he got a bum Achilles. There's a reason he's been in the league for 10 years, Langston. You're not just going to come in here and sweep him off with your two little moves that you learned down there at Takes Creek High, as Charlie Strong used to say all the time.
Oh man, rookie minicamp. That's usually when you get your welcome to the NFL experience. I'm curious what your first experience was lining up against another NFL player and being like, well, I think I've officially been welcomed to the National Football League.
Well, first of all, again, Elijah, way back in the early 2000s, when it was like only 3G at the time, we still wore pads. We had a half shell. We had shoulder pads and helmet. Off-season rookie mini camp, no contact, quote unquote, air quotes. That was the hello rookie moment. Like, I thought we was professionals, and it's all, yeah, we're all professionals. There's all competitors out there. And again, there's no reason to have bottoms on, because again, all you needed was the shoulder pads, because it was darn near live. That first rookie minicamp with the veterans with shoulder pads on way back in 2003. So now, obviously, they limit all of that with the collective bargaining and all those different things. So thank goodness that saved some kind of the hit count. But that was probably the biggest welcome to the NFL moment was like, oh, man, I thought we were just going to be out here in helmets looking good. No, we out here banging for real in April next to the river. Shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals. They finally got an inflatable dome. I don't know, for people for years, and it was that we were so cheap that you didn't have a dome. We could have got this inflatable dome for years. The Jets had one. Other teams do it every year. They finally figured out that in 2025, yeah, we need to get one of those for the players. Not to mention, there's a chemical plant right next door to that practice field, so maybe it's more so for the chemical smell. But glad to see that they're opening. Man, I'm glad to see that they're opening up the credit card and finally figuring out using some technology. They didn't know we had indoor inflatable little dome.
Look at that. Cool. The Bengals are growing up. Langston Moore is with us here, who played in the NFL for a while. All right, let's get to last night. By my math, whether it's offensive or defensive line, 17 of the 32 picks were linemen last night. You were a lineman. Has this ever really changed? My question being, does this prove football is won in the trenches?
And obviously, I think that the Eagles figuring out a way to beat the vaunted Kansas City Chiefs, led by the guy Patrick Mahomes, they did it in the trenches. So I think that kind of obviously cements all of that. And people, for a while, you saw certain teams always, if there was somebody there, they would always reach for the offensive lineman, or given the choice, they always go for the interior defensive tackle. But that's why last night I thought T.J. Sanders actually had kind of a chance getting towards the back end of the round before Nick and Mioria getting picked at the time, because there was such a run on defensive tackles and specifically interior defensive guys. But kind of, again, one of the things that is a plus for TJ is obviously he's tremendously athletic. He'll get you quarterback sacks. He's probably going to be one of those guys who's going to just like average 7 to 9 sacks through his kind of like NFL career for a long career. But, expecting him to play the run, that's probably not going to happen. So seeing a lot of the hybrid type of guys who are 310-ish, 320-ish, who can kind of, they kind of went before him. And obviously, TJ, just like Nick, will probably be getting picked up early here in the 30s in the second round here today. But yeah, definitely a run on all these interior guys. Just loading up, and again, not very sexy, but if you when it comes down to championship time, are trying to keep those quarterbacks upright, because that was one of the big things with the Carolina Panthers. Like, oh, we already got Xavier, Scary Terry. What's the point of getting this guy? But according to my Madden rate, that's the dude you go get. That dude is unstoppable on Madden. And so again, you just look at him, volleyball player all the way around. But trying to protect Bryce, figuring out some different things like that. So, it's always one in the trenches, and I think that's going to be the deal until we start playing flag football full on.
Right, yeah, and keeping the talk in the trenches here. I mean, Tonka Hemingway is one of those players I'm really intrigued by to see if he gets selected. He certainly has the talent to, and he's certainly produced enough at this level, I think, to warrant being drafted at any point here in the NFL draft. I think maybe one of the holdups is where he plays in the NFL, and he might maybe be seen as kind of a tweener as well. But when you watch Tonka, where do you think he kind of fits in the NFL, and where do you, I guess, maybe see him possibly getting taken, if at all?
Well, I love Tonka's game. Because for years he, went from, just showing all the athleticism, from the multiple touchdowns to the sacks to the various ways, just a lot of really long arms. And if you know the Hemingway name, the way he come from, they play football. And so I think that's one of those deals where you're right. Where depending upon where he goes and what scheme, it could be one of those deals where he has a long, illustrious career because he falls into the right situation. Or it could be one of those deals where somebody probably puts like a round peg in a small and, get down here and play this two-eye technique, which is, jargon for playing right next to in between the center and the guard, but inside the guard. So you can pretty much just take on both double teams and have, dictate where the linebacker kind of goes. And that's not Tonka's game. Tonka is up the field playing kind of a four technique, outside, inside eye of the tackle, offensive tackle there. So being able to get into something like a very active kind of like a 3-4 team where they can put them in a kind of a 4. And this is again, like we just talked about in the last deal with the hybrid kind of deal of defensive tackles and what they're looking for. A lot of teams now kind of play a style of defense on the defensive line where it looks like 3 defensive tackles and really 1 linebacker or 1 defensive end and the rest are 4 linebackers really, but manipulating that with, a lot of those guys with making it look like a 3 technique on one side and kind of a bear look on the other side. And that's all just high football jargon for how many bodies are they taking up on the inside. And again, Tonka's not a guy that wants to take up body. He's a guy that gets upfield and makes plays and is active. And I think the more he gets in this game, kind of like a basketball player, he gets more active and in the backfield. We've reaped the benefits of that as Gamecock fans in his defense for the last few years. Hopefully he can find some place like that in the NFL. I think he did. I think he will.
I know he's not a Gamecock anymore, but Columbia's Jordan Birch, who started here, of course, and moved over to Oregon, is getting some love for a chance to go tonight. What do you like about what he can do at his size at the next level?
Oh, again, there's still some lizard thicket. That's always going to be in there. But, it's just the length and obviously the bend, just kind of the natural, you look at him, he's built like a defensive tackle, an NFL defensive tackle, and Preston says it all the time on the morning show, like, he might not get drafted to like the 3rd round. He'll be like, okay, I remember that dude. He probably not, but he's gonna play for 12 years. You know what I'm saying? He'd be like, oh man, Jordan Birch won another Super Bowl with so and so. That's crazy, yeah, because he's been in the league for 12 years. And so again, just I think that's barring injury, knock on wood, same type of deal. He can probably use more. Somebody in the NFL who can probably play whatever type of scheme you put him in, whether it's kind of, you've seen him play at Oregon on the outside. We saw him play interior, a traditional kind of 4-3 type of deal, but he's going to be somebody that mixes it up and hopefully all of that tax revenue comes back to South Carolina a little bit. He makes his home back in South Carolina as opposed to Oregon, because Oregon is cool, but you don't want to live out there, man. You just visit that place and come back.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. All right, lots more to do with Langston on the other side. More on some of the other Gamecocks. Does Langston think Carolina can break a record for draft picks? We'll give him the list we compiled yesterday and see what he thinks. We'll do that and more with Mr. Moore when the postgame show returns. All right, welcome back in. We're back. Jay and Elijah with you.
You miss us? I missed us.
Langston Moore joining us from his home in the Dallas Metroplex, where he was such an amazing host last year with pizza and barbecue and some kind of Tex-Mex tacos that I still dream about. Those were good.
Those burrito tacos are real, Jay. They're real.
Everything was amazing, but I don't know what was the best. And then all the barbecue, and then like the sausages. I don't want to get hungry, so let's move on. Let's move on. When are you going to be back around here? You know, the other day, by the way, Preston had to leave early. I guess y'all had an engagement to go do, and so that forced me to have to do 15 minutes with Gunner. So I'm going to need you to tell Preston that he can't do that kind of thing. All right? He needs to leave at 9. I don't need to be doing stuff with Bill Gunner. I don't need to be propping up Bill Gunner.
I know we try to put this off on like the younger kids, like Tyler. Of course, Elijah, of course, is sleeping. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying. He knows
normally.
way better. Like, don't come around here before 12 o'clock. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm not sleeping. I'm hibernating.
Dead to the world, as the old folks used to say. But yeah, man. You know, Preston does his best to try to call right before walking. I mean, we start at 8:30. He's like, man, you gotta help. We gotta help Gunther out. He doesn't know what the green button does and the red button. Even though Jen is right there telling them push that one, but it's a group effort, man. That's why it's a team.
Oh no, Jen is there doing it. She's running the whole thing. Gunner's still doing it wrong. It's insane.
Vicious cycle.
It is. It's just terrible. But I had to do that last week, so it was my turn. Luckily, not as much, though. No, in all seriousness, we love Bill Gunner, as far as y'all know.
Do we have to say otherwise, right?
Yeah. No, listen, it was funny. I got to hang out with him for a few minutes down at the golf tournament last week. It was fun, and I actually am a huge Bill Gunner fan and a huge fan of Coach P and Langston. Don't forget, go to athletesandartists.net where you can learn all about the Just a Chicken series of books, he wants to say in English. That's Just a Chicken Little, Used to Was a Rooster, Button Gut Podcast, the Fight Podcast. You can find out how you can get Langston and Coach P into a school or other speaking engagement near you. Athletesandartists.net. And the swag, right? I can get some swag.
Oh, most definitely, as the kids say, man. We're trying to keep up with all the cool merch ideas out there, man.
The swag
really cool.
and the merch, it's fire.
I'm clipping.
You're working. It's like you're trying to learn a language today, and so it's just like a word a day, man.
That's
I
right.
like that. See, it's working.
That's right. It's getting there. All right, so here's my list, okay? This is the draftable guy, or so I think. In no particular order. I just wrote them out. Emma Worry, T.J. Sanders, Rocket Sanders, Kyle Kennard, D. Knight, O.D. Fortune, Josh Simon, Tonka Hemingway, Kai Kroger. That's 9. The record for South Carolina is 7 draft picks done twice. So of those 9 that are the most draftable, do you feel like there's at least 8 of the 9 or even all 9 that could hear their name? Do we break a record this weekend?
I saw the over-under, and again, we must have like some official line setters over there at the 107.5 polling because it was set at like right at 6.5, and I think
it rhymes with Elijah Campbell.
Yeah, so somebody is really.
Who?
He's got the AI algorithm. Watch out. He's going to have his whole gambling house working on some kind of back angle coaching, pulling the. I can see okay, I see what's happening now. But 6.5, that half is kind of. And I thought before I was like, we're going to be at 6. But now that you say it, I'll go ahead and stop. We'll get 8. We'll get 8. We won't have a half a Gamecock. I won't say 7.5. We won't have like does the kicker count only? Does Kyle Kroger only count as like half because he's a special teams player?
Would Jordan Burch count as half? Because he played here? Would that be a half a Gamecock?
There we go.
Ooh, now we're getting philosophical. Now we're getting philosophical. All right, that's a whole other. Yeah, I tell you. Let me ask you what you think. I mean, Kennard's going to go, but Demetrius Knight has. I mean, Elijah and I talk about it a bunch, and you grew up in a radio family, and you, again, you're with us. You tell stories. You write stories. We're here for the story. Demetrius Knight has a hell of a story, and I hope it ends with him having a big time opportunity this weekend. I think it will. But what do you like about his game, and what do you think teams like about his just whole persona?
I think that story's going to continue for a while because, I mean, he's one of those dudes, again, barring injury, NFL is just crazy. But he has the maturity, the wherewithal. Obviously, he just didn't come from, this program in Charlotte and make it to the SEC. I mean, the leadership all the way around. And the more you get to be around him and kind of watch him and know his story, you don't fall in love with the story. You just fall in love with who he is, all of that. And so I think it's going to be one of those dudes, again, hopefully he falls into the right situation and plays really long, especially at linebacker. Now, again, some of the special team stuff where you're like, oh, man, he's smart enough to be a guy. He can definitely make it on the 53. I mean, a lot of that has gone by the wayside because, again, kickoff teams, different things. But he's one of those dudes I think can actually be like the lower 48, 46 on a roster of 53 because that's the thing, kids. You have to also understand, even though there's 53 spots on the roster, in game day, there's only like 44 guys. So, again, it's really dependent upon you want to be in the upper 40. And so with his maturity, him being a family guy, I mean, all of that checks off the boxes, and obviously he tested really well for a linebacker. We can talk about, age and different things, and we've seen kind of like a transition for like the NFL looking for like younger quarterbacks, and they're still out there, but like now they're if you've been there 3 or 4 years in the system, specifically in one system without NIL transfers and different things, they're falling in love with that, more and more so in love with that. The older quarterback that stays for all 4 years, and so I think it's kind of the same thing with him being a linebacker because he is in essence the quarterback on the defensive side, and he can be a really smart kid and a kid that played a long time.
See, I think the smart teams, Langston, look at a player like Demetrius Knight, prioritize him because of his experience and because of his age. And it's my biggest pet peeve, whether it be the NFL, NBA, whatever, teams that have players maybe fall on their board or be lower on them because of their age. I've never understood, like to me, you can get a player like Demetrius Knight who's mature, who has a lot of leadership qualities. Even though if he is 24, 25 years old coming in, you're only a couple of years removed from what his prime is normally going to be, assuming everybody's prime is around age 27, 28, and you get their prime on a rookie deal. I've always thought that was maybe one of the better ways to go and where you can find a lot of value. But for some reason, Langston, I think there is a larger, I guess, discrimination is not a great word for it, but a bias against older players, and that's
it's ageism, man. It's ageism, Elijah,
yes.
And it comes for everybody. When they start calling you sir, and they look at the little discount and be like, "Are you old enough for the seat?" Nah, not yet. I could maybe next year, But no, that's what it is, and I think you're exactly right because. Again, you get a kid that's mature. He's going to have his family. He's going to have all that stuff intact. Again, we're operating on the idea that he's a really good player. We saw that he played at a high level consistently in the SEC, coming up from a level regardless of the Charlotte. I mean, so that's been proven. You get him on that rookie year. Again, the average for the NFL is like, it used to be 3 years, 3 games. Now I think it's like 2.6 now. So play the averages. Pay him that, and the upside is he plays phenomenal. You have a phenomenal story. Not like you got Pop Frisbee up in there like he's 45 years old or something. Shout out to Pops. I know he's listening on analog radio, nothing digital, nothing, no. None of that.
There's rap music on that radio.
We love Pops.
Be quiet. I'm trying to tune into the guys. But I think that's a great example of doing so. You do it with quarterbacks. I think it's something the same way with him. And again, you got six more rounds to work this out, plus the addition of how they manipulate the practice squad now. So again, it's not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal to invest in somebody like him.
All right, I'm up against the break. Can you hang on? Because I got a little bit more I need to get to about some of the big names from last night and the weekend too. So can I get you for one more segment?
Absolutely.
All right, good. We'll throw in some food on the other side too. Not to eat, just to talk about.
That would be hard to get done.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out.
Distance.
All right, good. A little bit more with Langston as we discuss the NFL draft. You are listening to the Postgame Show.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to you. They're causing some issues on the roadways, starting with one on Barr Road at South Carolina 204 and Pisgah Church Road. Corley Mill Road between US 378, Sunset Boulevard, and South Carolina 6 at North Lake Drive. Farrow Road at Highway 555 at I-77. Highway 1 at Augusta Road at North Grampian Hills Road. I-77 northbound at Killian Road near exit 22. Langford Road at US 21 and Main Street, South Carolina 277 northbound at South Carolina 555 and Farrow Road, and on US 176 at Broad River Road at St. Andrews Road.
Talking NFL, draft, and more with our good friend Langston Moore, the former Gamecock. Always appreciate his time. And Elijah and I'm Jay, by the way. Hi. We appreciate you choosing to be with us. Again, to get more from Langston and from Preston, go to athletesandartists.net, or you can follow Langston on Twitter. Remove the chains, the way to do that. And Coach P is Coach P Tweets, right? Am I right about that? Yeah, Coach P tweets.
Yeah, Coach P. I'm sure he's got something very simple. So, yeah, Coach P.
Coach P tweets.
Sounds about
there you go. All right, so Cam Ward goes number one, and I was watching the ABC broadcast, the College Game Day broadcast, and they like ESPN, I guess, immediately pivoted to the trade with the Browns and Jags that sent Travis Hunter, which kind of bothered me. I was like, y'all even going to talk about Cam Ward? I assume the NFL Network must have, because I did not see them in the crosshairs of angry fans and media. That being said, I had kind of lobbied, if that's the right word, Langston, for Tennessee to take Abdul Carter, if only because I just think a guy like Carter is an immediate game wrecker. That's not a judgment on how I feel, is just for what I do on Cam or Travis Hunter or anybody else. But the Titans are now, obviously all in on Cam Ward, and that they've even gotten, which I thought was a cool secondary story. Did you see this, Langston? Warren Moon is gonna let the franchise unretire his number. I'm like, yeah, that's all right. So that's really everybody all in at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And when that says a lot. But had to be like one of the most lackluster. I think the only one that was probably worse, first overall, like probably to go down in like history of like who's the first, like unless Cam just completely like when we look back in like 10, 50 years, like draft night, it was, a consensus. There was a no-brainer. It's just, complete disrespect. They went straight to the Shador Sanders camp, the chicken wing stand. Oh, man, for him, they didn't give the montage of like, this is what he did, the comebacks. They just was like flashing that kind of more so in like the background. I was like, dang, Cam didn't even get up the ramp yet. So, but definitely Tennessee is all in. I know you're going to have their guy on here talking a little bit, but Brian Callahan and that whole deal, it's really cool to kind of see that tip of the cap of like, Warren Moon, again, kind of passing the torch. I mean, if you could be half as good as Warren Moon, watch out. The Tennessee Titans might be closer to those early 2000 days when they were going back and forth with the Ravens and Indianapolis and everybody else in the AFC.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I know the fan base is excited about Cam Ward, because I think they watch him and they see some Steve McNair in Cam Ward a little bit. But I think the team that maybe made the biggest splash, and that's one of the reasons why they turned the attention to Jacksonville so much, was obviously in their division, because they traded up to get Travis Hunter. And we all know that Travis Hunter is otherworldly talented, and I don't think anybody on the surface would blame anybody for taking Travis Hunter as the second player in this draft. I think the thing that's got a lot of people questioning it or maybe sideways about it is because they gave up next year's first, and especially around here where we are, not too far away from Charlotte, North Carolina, where the Panthers gave up a first the next season to be able to, pick Bryce Young. Spoiler alert, they were bad the next year, and they missed out on having another top pick. And that's the one holdup I think I have on this, is the question of, is Travis Hunter in his rookie season enough to give up next season's first?
I think they're kind of like pushing all their chips in to support Trevor. I think to give Liam Cohen. Look here. This is Liam Cohen, this little narrative of like, oh, he's such a genius. we you know what I'm saying, multiple times we spanked that behind up there in Kentucky. Then he left and went off. Again, I have to ask how much of it was our guy from the LA Rams, his brain, that great monster memory brain. How many coaches, offensive coaches, have come off that staff? And Liam Cohen is one of them. And again, you know, you can play the Duval sound or whatever, but hopefully this is because, like, this has always been the thing with Liam Cohen. He's so innovative. And so you have the piece of all pieces, really, with Travis Hunter. Like, besides him he's not a gimmick. Like, he runs he's probably, you know, if he had 2 more inches on him, I mean, he wouldn't even be close to Scary Terry. And, you know, Scary Terry wouldn't even be close to him as far as best wide receiver in this draft. And so with him getting this piece, being able to utilize it, doing some different things, some other pieces that they already have down there in Jacksonville, it just feels like they're kind of like pushing it all in. And again, the storyline of, like, you know, the Florida deal and having that, there's going to be some marketing deal with that. But I think they just kind of pushed all their chips behind Trevor, making this work, and Liam Cohen trying to get that. As far as, like, expecting him to be on defense, I don't expect that to be. I mean, again, no disrespect to this staff, but Anthony Capenni, I don't know who this defensive coordinator is or who the defensive back coach is, i.e. leave Travis Hunter alone and let him just be the athlete of all athletes in the slot, and he can come over and play nickel a little bit on third down sometimes.
One thing I told Elijah, I don't know if you agree, and I'm not really defending the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I wrote in my rundown today, Jags equal Jets. I just don't really have a lot of faith in them. I just don't, man. I just don't.
Until they get to London.
Yeah, exactly. What did I say to you the other day? I was like, they're more concerned about their games in London. But that maybe they feel they just got 2 first-round picks in one player. You know, again, that's like the only way I can try to justify it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. And again, I don't know, you know, maybe I'm just quick glance at what they got going on down there on the whole entire staff. But, like, you know, this is a really special player, and being able to utilize him, like, okay, is he going to have the impact of a Charles Woodson, you know, on defense? And again, Charles made a lot of great plays for a lot of Super Bowl teams, Green Bay, you know, a lot of those Raider teams. I mean, again, you talk about the tuck rule and all those different things. How different is the narrative with the Patriots, with all that? Charles Wood. It's not going. I think it's going to be more offensive inclined with Travis Hunter in this deal. But all in all, with all of that, man, shout out to Travis Hunter and that whole, like, you look all the way back to that whole narrative about, like, trusting in Deion, going all the way back to Jackson State. Like, again, you have to operate the idea this boy is very, very good. And we knew he was very, very good. And shout out to Deion for seeing that and seeing it all the way through. But, I mean, almost the number 1 overall pick, you know what I'm saying? Like, saw it all the way through the through line. That's with the Heisman. That's no crazy feat when you sit back and look at the all 22 version of what happened with Travis Hunter.
That's a great point. And for as much guff as Deion's getting about the Shador thing, or that people don't want to take Shador because of Deion, I don't know why they're not talking more about what you just said, because this was, hey, trust me, I'll get you there. And where there is, to your point, Langston, not really sure, but there became the Heisman Trophy, and there became the number 2 pick in the draft, and there's going to be a lot of extra money beyond the Jacksonville Jaguars payroll that comes Travis Hunter's way.
For sure. With marketing, he's definitely, I mean, he learned a lot from Deion, not just football stuff, but the off-the-field stuff. But, man, Shador Sanders is going to be just fine, man. Like, again, it sucks for him, whatever. I mean, but this is, again, like I tell Nick, like I tell Tonka Hemingway, like I tell Langston Moore, way back in the early 2000s before Zoom was invented, invest in this thing called Apple when it's really only $100 a stock. I would tell Langston Moore, it's not where you're at in the first year. It's where you're going to be at 3 years and the subsequent 3 years after that. It's about those things. So, again, it's all about the averages with the NFL. Those things are going to work themselves out. But, like, Shador's going to be all right, man. He's going to fall into a situation, and, it is what it is. Ultimately, they got Nike commercials and everything, so it's not about the money. It's just all about the respect for those things. But Travis Hunter, that's the all-22 version, looking at that from that high, it's really dope, man, to kind of think about that, because that was something we all kind of like, are you sure? Is he just an athletic kid? Is he? And, I mean, put it all together.
And the Shador Sanders thing is interesting to me. I think there's more people publicly upset about it. And I watched it, I like him a lot. And I think he's a really gifted passer. He might be the most accurate quarterback in this draft. But I think the thing that is more so than anything else, I think this element that I'm about to mention has a bigger impact on him falling than it is anything attitude related or, interview related. I just don't think he has maybe some of those traits that other guys have. maybe in terms of like the strongest arm in the draft is probably Cam Ward. He doesn't have that mobility that someone like Anthony Richardson got drafted so high on solely because of that athleticism. To me, I guess I think he's a safer pick than someone like Jackson Dart. But I think when I watch him, I don't know what it is that's necessarily missing. I think it's just that high-end athleticism. But I just don't know if he's one of those quarterbacks that in a draft loaded with great interior talent in the trenches that I think you just don't necessarily need to reach for.
Also, too, with this Deion story, all the way back with his son playing quarterback, all the way back here to high school in Texas, that's a phenomenal story in itself. So, to be honest with you, wherever Shedeur goes, again, Jackson State to Colorado, all of those he had a part to play in a lot of those touchdowns with Travis Hunter too. But look here, it's a success even if he goes fourth round. You dig what I'm saying? So I think the whole deal with Shedeur Sanders is he's a glorified Tua Tagovailoa that's not left-handed, and so he has to be timing and a lot of that. He has enough to be. He's a kid. He's a kid in my mind. You draft him for the things that a lot of people say they don't like. He's the kid that grew up in the arena like Steph Curry. He's seen his dad hit a bunch of shots, but it has nothing to do with the talent. It's the killer instinct and my ability to go out there every day and shoot 100 three-pointers consistently at year 15 and have that's Shedeur Sanders. Now we got to work with his pocket presence and some different things else. He falls into the right situation. Now everybody's looking back like, oh, man, how did we miss on that? When, again, revisionist history, got to be careful. There's a reason why you took an offensive tackle if you're the Saints and all these different things. So I think it's one of those situations. You're getting Shedeur Sanders, and it's one of those things, for me in the locker room, I want a quarterback with something with it. He got a little – I would take a little less arm and a little bit more panache, and somebody says, I can put that in there when these guys are breathing down my throat. Not all the time when it's 6 interceptions. No, don't do that. But I think he's along the lines of the killer mindset, Tom Brady, all of those different things. He grew up. That's the Sanders business, and that's what you get with that, along with everything else. And that can get you some wins in the NFL.
Good stuff as always, sir. We appreciate you. Thanks for the extra time too. We'll get you again here in a week or two, and then we can just talk about how my Broncos did because I don't know yet. We'll figure it out.
Well, y'all went the safe pick, man. Y'all
that was a good one last night. Yeah, just got to get some more now. He's Langston Moore. Remove the chains to follow on Twitter. And again, for Just a Chicken and speaking engagements and so much more, athletesandartists.net. Best to the missus. Have a great weekend, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate y'all.
That's Langston Moore. All right, we doing Jay or nay on the other side?
Indeed, we are.
Oh, boy. All right. 2 in a row. See how I can do. Coming up. Swag really cool. And the merch. It's fire. Welcome back in. Postgame Show rolling along on a Friday. Coming up top of the hour, headlines of the day, including a big one involving a local Columbia athlete. We'll get into that. Got a little bit of a preview of Carolina baseball, drive around the SEC, and more. But now, any excuse to play game show music, I'm here for.
Because this is a game show in itself.
And we're doing it. All right.
We are a show on the game, which I guess technically, by rule, makes us a game show.
See what you did there. Well done. Play on words.
Yeah, I like doing that.
Yeah, good stuff.
But it's our newest favorite game, and that is Jay or Nay, where I will read off a take. Not necessarily my take, just a take.
Yeah.
And if Jay agrees, if it's a Jay take, he will go with Jay. And if it's not, well, you know the rest. So we'll start off here.
All right.
The Jaguars gave up too much to get Travis Hunter.
I mean, anytime you give up an additional first-round pick, you are taking an awful risk, Vader.
Yeah.
Nay. I think they really felt they just needed this guy, and I'm going to buy into the narrative for now at least that they think they just got 2 first-round picks in one young man.
I think they definitely believe
That's what they believe. So for now, as much as I don't have a lot of belief in that franchise's ability to sustain any level of success, long-term success, I see why they did what they did. And I do think this is a better trade than what the Panthers did when they got Bryce Young.
Okay, so you're going nay.
So I'll say nay.
How about no?
All right, the second one. The most confusing pick of the first round was Amari and Hampton to the Chargers.
No, wow, I don't even know.
How about no?
I'll say nay. I'll say nay. I think I told you this morning on that one, I didn't know this would be a question on the Jay or Nay quiz. I think that's Jim Harbaugh saying, all right, I got Najee Harris. Now I've got Hampton. We're going to pound the football. We're going to control the clock. This is what I do. I play old school football. It's not always pretty. It's not always flashy, but I win. And this is part of how I win. And like you said, Hampton is a guy, his last 2 years up in Chapel Hill, had, 3,300 yards combined.
He ran for a lot.
I mean, so.
Their best player.
No, I don't know. I don't know where I would go for another confusing pick, but I wouldn't say that's it.
Now, we talked about the Panthers selection yesterday and what they should do with it.
Yep.
They did take, who is the consensus best receiver in this draft, or at least the most highly touted, but Jay or Nay, the Panthers made a mistake by not drafting a defensive player in the first round, given that the Panthers ranked 32nd in points allowed.
Well, quite honestly, I would offer you a third option. I would have probably gone for offensive line help. But I know we talked about defense yesterday because they just need so much. But as I said about Tet McMillan, or T-Mac as they call him out that way, he reminds me of Alshon Jeffrey. I just think, and Alshon didn't go into the second round just like Sidney Rice. They were first round talents. Mm-hmm. Maybe the circumstances had them drop. This kid's just, I told you last night, I just think he's a better Alshon Jeffrey. And that says a lot because Alshon was awesome. And I just think they saw him. I just think they saw him and said, you know what? Bryce needs a target that is going to just basically always catch the football. And I think this kid is it, man. So
incredible catch radius.
I like it. I would have probably preferred trenches either side.
Yeah.
But I get it.
So
because Bryce, again, Bryce needs help in a lot of ways, but someone that catches the football when the quarterback throws it consistently is I like this guy, man. I'm telling you, I see Alshon Jeffrey when I see him on film.
It's high praise.
I really do.
It's very high praise. Jay or Nay? So since 2020, the Eagles have drafted 10 players from either Georgia or Alabama. That's 25% of their picks in that time frame. They have discovered, here's the take, they have discovered the cheat code to the NFL draft.
Jay. because that's what those two schools have been built upon. The Nick Saban, now Kirby Smart model of defense wins championships. Go get me amazing athletes that love to defend, that love to hit you, that love how to get back into space. Not only that, but I think in some of these guys, they've just got those innate ball hawks that just seem to know where the play is going to be, and they're there. So, yeah, they've discovered the cheat code. And let's face it, Bama and Georgia have been good at it, so that's a J. Swag and the merch, it's fire. Thank you.
So you would say that strategy is fire.
It's fire. It's working, man.
It's working pretty well. I mean, it did win them a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they went to another one, too. So they're going to be in another one, I think. Maybe as soon as next year.
Potentially.
They're really good. Hour 3 coming up.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents here to report to you. They're causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon, starting with one on Assembly Street near Calhoun Street, Corley Mill Road between US 378 Sunset Boulevard and South Carolina 6 North Lake Drive, I-77 northbound at Killian Road near Exit 22, US 176 at Broad River Road at St. Andrews Road, and lastly, one on US 321 at Coon Store Road.
It is indeed 5 o'clock news time. It is also the final hour of the Postgame Show. Welcome back in on this Friday, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. We start with some, depending on your point of view, some upsetting news. Malaysia Fulwiley had to land somewhere when she put her name into the transfer portal, and we knew she wasn't coming back to the University of South Carolina. And she has now landed at LSU.
This is a load of barnacles.
She has announced that today on her social media accounts. She'll be a junior next year. Of course, entered a couple of days after Carolina finished the season losing to Connecticut in the national title game. I said earlier, so I'm going to blend the news with some thoughts and opinions here. Elijah will as well. I said earlier today, from an observational standpoint, that this might be the most provocative landing spot she could have chosen. Did she do that on purpose? I don't think so, because it's also one of the best programs in the country. There's no doubting that either. Carolina's won 2 of the last 4 women's championships. Connecticut won 1, LSU won the other one. So we know that Kim Mulkey wins titles. She's got 4 under her belt. We know they support women's basketball. But the Carolina-LSU rivalry is intense. Yes, I know South Carolina has basically won all the games in the last few years whenever they have seen them. So
I still count it.
As our own Tyler Head asked, somewhat jokingly, is it really a rivalry if the other team never wins? And I get where he was coming from on that. That being said, we know that television loves this matchup. We know that the dynamic personalities of both head coaches make for a terrific environment. We know both gyms are always packed whenever they play, or in the case of when they met at the SEC tournament, that gym was packed as well. Mm-hmm. TV numbers for it are great. Our good friend Reggie Anderson from WLTX hit us during the first discussion of this at the top of the show, and basically said the ABC folk at Disney told the ESPN folk at Disney, we're going to take this one.
Just a one-word text, and it says dibs.
Yeah, this is going to be on the broadcast side, not the cable and satellite side and streaming side. So, look, I get it. I don't, and as I told you, I freely admit here, I've not done any type of deep dives into LSU's returning roster. I know Kim had some pretty big names that left her program. One went to Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And I know, too, that here at South Carolina, as much as they will miss Malaysia Fulwiley, and they will, she's a star, they have done quite well through the portal and in this year's high school class. And as we talked about when Malaysia left a couple of weeks ago, Elijah, maybe the biggest pain here, like in terms of like heartache pain, is that her high school gym and her college gym were 10 minutes apart. That's what we talked about. She's from right smack here in the city of Columbia. But, I say most provocative in the sense that she could have gone anywhere pretty much.
Yeah,
but,
her pick of the litter.
But it wasn't
Truly.
It wasn't Clemson, right? It wasn't Texas. It wasn't Connecticut. And you feel like it's certainly in terms of just straight up basketball, LSU, Texas, or Connecticut, maybe even to some degree Tennessee, would have made a lot of sense. Clemson's basketball program is not quite there yet. And just, by being the obvious rival. So, I mean, good for her. It's not an Under Armour school. I don't know yet. I haven't done any digging into that part of it yet, too. They're a Nike school. She's got a heck of a deal with Under Armour, as we know. Does that just get put on hold until she becomes a WNBA player, which she will become in a couple of years? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But, look, she had to go somewhere. And on top of that, too, for whatever the reasons basketball-wise were that she and Dawn decided to part ways, we also know that the financial aspect of this matters. And to one of the points you made earlier, LSU has the money.
They do. And they have the ability to give her maybe the star money because, in terms of the sport's popularity, Malaysia Fulwiley is one of those popular players in the entire sport. If she was seeking star money, more likely to get that at LSU. I don't know the specifics of what Carolina has in their NIL reserves and exactly what they are giving out in terms of revenue share. But when your roster is as deep as South Carolina's, and part of keeping people happy is making sure that they're happy with what their compensation is, not just in basketball, but in any walk of life. And being able to get everybody, happy enough, while also LSU having a lot of players leaving, probably freed up a lot of funds over in Baton Rouge for them to be able to get her over, And LSU has done that. They have won bidding wars for players plenty of times, right? Anissa Morrow didn't go to LSU for free. And that kind of leads me to believe that LSU, rightfully, they had the money to be able to give to her that she thinks that she's worth, and enough to be able to entice her over to the dark side.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, look, Angel Reese didn't leave her home state
for free. Not at all.
Angel Reese could have been a big star at Maryland.
And already was.
But, she grew up 30 minutes from the campus, and instead she decided to go 1,000 miles away. So I get it. As we talked about too, and this is not me judging, this is me giving you fact and how a lot of this, has been looked at. Malaysia Fulwiley played the 7th most minutes on the Gamecock roster this season. She led the team in steals, which is awesome. She also led the team in turnovers, which is not. And we've talked about it a bunch. Her head coach is one of the great, one guards in the history of the sport, period, end of story. She's in the Hall of Fame. She has 3 gold medals as a player. She has 2 gold medals as a coach, 1 assistant, 1 head. She demands a lot, especially of a 1, even if it's a scoring 1. Mm-hmm. But you got to protect the basketball.
That's the biggest part.
You just got to protect the basketball. And I don't think that Dawn feels there's enough there. And trying to maybe get her over that hump just hadn't worked. There's, no guarantees that Malaysia was going to continue to start or would become a starter, I should say. Excuse me.
Because then she's going into year 3. Yeah. And I'm sure her expectation coming into this program was she wouldn't be coming off of the bench for more than 2 years.
Right. So, anyway, there you go. Malaysia Fulwiley. We will see her maybe a lot over the next 2 seasons.
God, I hope they change the schedule to let LSU be a home and home. The drama queen in me wants this.
I kind of think now, if they haven't fully finalized it, do you have some powers that be in Birmingham going, hey, hold up
about that schedule?
Yeah, let's look at this one more time real quick.
You have to. You have to.
I think you do.
Give people what they want.
That's content. Content is king.
It's our entire jobs.
Yeah, or queen in this case, if you want to keep it with women's sports.
That's right.
Malaysia Fulwiley is an LSU Tiger. Gamecock baseball gets back at it tonight up in Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky coming off a series victory in Knoxville. Gamecocks coming off that series victory over Ole Miss here in Columbia. Brandon Stone back on the hill tonight for the Gamecocks. The sophomore righty 2-4 with a 4.93. 36 strikeouts, just 8 walks. He's been one of the better Gamecocks when it comes to control. Nate Harris is a freshman righty for Kentucky, 3-2 with a 4.67, 24 strikeouts, 14 walks in 34 2/3. Tomorrow, Jake McCoy goes against Nick McKay. That'll be fun for Derek. And Sunday, the Gamecocks have not yet chosen a starting pitcher. Ben Cleaver, a sophomore lefty, will go for Kentucky. We'll have game 1 of the 3 games set for you tonight here in Columbia at 6:15 and 6:30 first pitch across the Gamecock radio network. Staying in state, but moving to the Clemson Tigers. Let me get to this one. The athletics department, Graham Neff, the athletics director, and Brad Brownell have agreed to a new deal for Brad, who's done a good job at Clemson. Now, this year, of course, they got upset in the first round, but last year they made the Elite Eight. He now has a new 6-year contract at Clemson. It will pay him a total of $27.5 million. It starts with a $4 million salary next year and will escalate each year of the deal to conclude at $5 million in the 30-31 season. There could have potentially been some interest in Brad from other schools. You and I talked about this when maybe because he's from Indiana. Again, he didn't go to Indiana, but he's from Indiana. And when the Hoosiers job came open, they filled it pretty quickly with Coach DeVries from West Virginia. But Brad's done well, and he's done well at a place where basketball is not always popular.
It's secondary.
And where it's harder to get some kids to come in. And now Clemson's locked him up. I don't have any buyout details, but I would imagine it'll be difficult to get him away at this point in time. So it feels like Brad Brownell's found his destination until he's ready to hang him up.
Well, because it's a match made in heaven. I mean, Brad Brownell has taken them to the NCAA tournament enough for them to be happy, and the expectation isn't as soul-crushing as it would be at Indiana. That's why, like, the entire time that Indiana had their head coaching vacancy and I'd see the Brownell thing come up, I'm like, if I'm Brad Brownell, I'm not taking that job. Even if you have roots at Indiana, right? I would not want to touch that job with a 10-foot pole because the expectations are overbearing. Yes, you have a lot of resources. Yes, Indiana is willing to spend more money than anybody on the planet to get good basketball players. But at the same time, your grace period is next to none.
Yeah.
It is an expectation that you win immediately. And that's why the Darren DeVries thing I find to be interesting. Does it work? I don't know. But if you're Brad Brownell and you go to Indiana, the expectation is not just that you make an NCAA tournament every 3 years. It's that you make it every year. And not just make it every year, you get to the second weekend every year.
Yeah.
And that's just such a monumental jump in expectation from the job that he's held for over a decade and a half.
And there was a time when that was perfectly reasonable. And, you know, we've talked about it a bunch that South Carolina baseball, unfortunately, as I blend in a couple of topics that we've discussed here in this news segment, you know, that's where fans are still. I mean, this fan base, there's still a bunch of folks that just, dare I say, almost demand, you know, visits at least to the super regionals, which is the Sweet 16 version for Carolina or for college baseball. And it's easier said than done, but you're right. And you don't want to lower your expectations too much, but in today's Big Ten, and considering Indiana's a generation away from even their last visit to a title game, right? That was 20-something years ago.
That was 2002.
Yeah. And along with what, they're 20 or 36 years away from something like that, from their 37 years from their last title.
Yeah. You remember who the coach was for them when they went to the title game last?
Mike. I can't remember his last name.
Davis.
Mike Davis.
Just random.
Yeah, well, again, that
Random
around
coach.
the same period of time, we joke about this sometimes too. That's right around the same time when the Bears just made a Super Bowl. Like, how'd the Bears get to the Super Bowl?
Like 3 years later.
Yeah, it's like, what are we doing here?
Last time
when the Raiders made a Super Bowl.
Last time I cried over a sporting event when the Bears beat the living hell out of the Saints in the NFC title game.
You know,
11 years old.
Yeah, like, but
Brutal.
somehow Indiana is like, you got hot at the right time, and they made it all the way. Who'd they lose to?
Maryland.
Maryland. Who'd Syracuse beat?
Kansas. They beat Nick Collison and Kirk Heinrich in Kansas.
It's a good team.
That was a really good team. Coached by Roy.
Yeah, but Syracuse
Closest Roy got
had that mellow guy. And
he was pretty good.
He was pretty good.
And they also had Jerry McNamara, who was the
shooting.
guy that was there for 500 years before players could play it somewhere for 500
He
years.
was doing the Ron Slay thing up there.
The Masters program over at Syracuse.
Finally, real quick, Braves back at it tonight. Have won 5 of 6, but still 10-14, and still last in the East by a game. They will be in Phoenix to take on the Diamondbacks. Chris Sale for Atlanta, 0-2 with a 6.17. Zach Gallen goes for Arizona. He's 1-3 with a 5.60. That's also kind of a
disgusting.
9:40 Eastern time, first pitch from Phoenix. Go Braves. Come back on the other side. All right, we got our list of Gamecocks that could hear their name tonight. Get into more of that, more draft coverage. You're listening to the Postgame Show. AAA Heating and Air, ready to keep you and your family nice and comfortable all spring and summer long. If it's been a while since you've had your AC system checked out, 803-677-1500. Get it inspected. Find out exactly how it's doing. If it's great, hey, you get a thumbs up, man, and you know you're going to be nice and cool all summer long. If not, they can get it fixed for you. And if you've been looking at your power bill lately and realizing that maybe your system is old and clunky and inefficient, even if it's producing the amount of comfort you need, might be time for something brand new. Roy and Dana Finley ready to help you out with that. How about guaranteed financing? How about a $1,500 rebate? How about a 15-year parts and labor guarantee? Interested? You can go online, call AAAtoday.com, or better yet, call them up, 803-677-1500. Stay cool and tell them we sent you to AAA Heating and Air.
Press coverage on the outside. Reed looking over to that left side. Now takes the snap out of the gun. Smith comes out the gate. Back to there. Another sack. Another sack. That's T.J. Sanders. He joins the party tonight. That's his third on the year. -7 on the play.
That's Todd on the call. T.J. Sanders against Texas A&M back in the fall. We'll hear T.J. Sanders' name tonight, we think.
I'm going to put my name on this, and I'm going to say yes.
I think we do. I know a lot of folks disappointed. Welcome back in, by the way. He's Coach Elijah Campbell.
That's right.
I'm Jay Phillips.
Don't forget it.
Talking some Gamecocks in the draft. We had Langston Moore on with us a little bit earlier. So yesterday, if you missed it, we came up with 9 we believe 9 draftable names in maybe in somewhat of an order, or at least at the top 2. Emmett Warry and TJ Sanders, I think, go tonight.
I think so. Emmett Warry, definitely.
Does Kyle Kennard go tonight?
I'm going to lean no.
Does Demetrius
if he can.
Then does Demetrius Knight go tonight?
Day 3.
Yeah. But here's the names. So, again, 7 is the record. Elijah has the over-under at 6.5.
Mm-hmm. I'll pull up our poll results here.
Yeah, let's do that. I didn't get to vote yet. Well, it's not that I didn't get to. I guess I could just.
Very non-patriotic of you, Jay Phillips.
You know me.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
You're a monster.
Poll question of the day, will the Gamecocks go over or under 6.5 players selected in this year's draft? So before you say anything, hang on. I'm going to vote.
It's about time. Somebody also hasn't voted.
Did you have those little stickers? See, there's the problem. I don't get one of those stickers when I leave the polling place. I want an I voted sticker. All right, I voted.
Sometimes you don't get one.
I voted over. Oh, I see the results now. Not a lot of faith.
Yeah, we have a lot of unders. 2/3 of the votes.
Here's the names. Again, in no real particular order. Emmett Warry, TJ Sanders, Rocket Sanders, Kennard, Knight, Fortune, Simon, Hemingway, Kroger. I realize punters are
people too.
Yes, they are. Listen, Kai's going to kick in the NFL. I don't think he's going to get drafted, but he would be 9. He's the 9th on my list. 8 would break the record if the other guys all go. And they all have draft grades next to them. But it doesn't mean they get drafted.
I had grades next to my report card sometimes in school. Didn't mean they were great, but they were grades. Nonetheless.
I know how that felt. I remember that. Especially like chemistry. I didn't do well in chemistry.
Same, no. Shout out my friend Phoenix Roberts. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have passed.
Yeah. I mean, chemistry is just math with chemicals.
I don't like it.
Yeah. There's way too much math in chemistry.
Not my speed.
Did not care for that.
Not my tempo.
Nah, did not care for that. Anyway, as we talked about, I think our own level of subjectivity maybe clouds our judgment. And when I say our, I don't just mean you and me, maybe a lot of fans. But based on your poll question, maybe I'm wrong about that. And maybe there is more objectivity from some Carolina fans who just don't think that a record is set for Carolina draftees. And I don't think, like I had somebody ask me this morning if I felt that Nick Emmanwori not being picked, or like Malachi Starks going to Baltimore instead of Nick, if Nick had received a better grade, which he did slightly. Did it have anything to do with Nick, pulling himself out of the bowl game? And I said, no, I don't. I've not. I haven't even in any of the run up to the draft. I don't want to say I had forgotten about that, but I hadn't thought about that. Is that a fair way to say it? And I haven't read about that.
And I mean, like what, 4 or 5 days before that game was played in that exact same stadium, Cam Ward did the exact same thing, and he got taken number 1 overall. Yeah,
well, and again, we said, and I don't want to rehash that story too much. The difference was that Cam Ward had told everybody. Everybody
and they agreed with it.
Yeah, everybody knew what Cam Ward was going to do, and apparently maybe Nick thought he had done it the right way. And anyway, the point is, to the question, did that matter? No, that's not what it was last night. Last night, we talked about it too with Langston. Y'all, there were 17 linemen, offensive or defense, 17 linemen taken last night, plus several linebackers. I just think that, there's some really big names that are still on the board.
Especially at skill position.
Yeah, skill guys we talked to, just to make a further comparison. I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but we talked about Alshon and Sidney earlier. Those were we know they were first round talents.
Mm-hmm. And they were first round players in the NFL in terms of their production.
Yeah, but they went in the second round. It's just that it happens. There's only 32 picks. There's just only so much room. And then when you realize, like, oh, man, that lineman's there. We see 3 safeties later, and mathematically we can get one. Or we see 3 receivers, and mathematically we can get one. But this D tackle, there ain't another one of him in this year's draft.
Mm-hmm. The premium on those guys.
We got to go get him now. If that, and I'm that's just the way I think that a lot of teams look at it. But 17, over half of the draft last night was offensive or defensive linemen.
2 players, last name Campbell, got selected last night. We made a little history there.
What does that tell you?
Tells you it's the best draft class ever.
Maybe so. But so Emanwari is going tonight, I think, in the second round.
I think within the first 5 picks.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think TJ Sanders goes tonight. And I just wonder, as, again, going back to linemen, do they look at Kyle Kennard? Do they look at any award that the award he got, and then say, there's a guy that maybe still needs just a little bit of seasoning? Because I think all the linemen that were drafted last night, they're going to start.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to start
immediately.
Yeah,
like you don't draft those guys to sit them their rookie year.
They're going to start, and Kennard may not be ready to start yet. As an example, TJ Sanders may not be ready to start yet. And we were talking with Langston about TJ and Tonka Hemingway, that they're as an NFL D tackle, Langston loves their strengths, but outlined not so much their weaknesses, but their deficiencies, I think, is probably a more fair way to say it, and what they're going to have to do to stay. But in terms of both TJ Sanders and Tonka Hemingway, he was like, I think they're going to be in the league a long time.
Especially with someone like Tonka, if you get him in a defensive scheme that fits, I think that's the one thing that Langston said that I was like, yeah, you know what, that's a good angle I haven't thought about. If he gets into a scheme that fits, because he is a little bit of a tweener, or is viewed that way, that you can find a role for him for a long time in the league. I have no doubt that he'll be able to play in the league for a long time. It's just, I think a lot of that's going to be contingent on who drafts him and what they use him for.
But I don't know, man. I think I don't know how much Carolina's reputation can precede it when it comes to somebody like O'Donnell Fortune. But South Carolina does have a great rep through the decades of producing quality DBs, and there could be 2 more tonight.
And O'Donnell had a great year.
He did.
That interception against Old Dominion, still one of my favorite plays this season, where he's on his, he's in man, and he's guarding, or he's defending one of the receivers that's on like an out-breaking route, and he just reads the quarterback's eyes, bails on that when the ball's in the air, and still has the athleticism to get in position to make that interception in the end zone.
Right into
and I remember I watched that play like 1,000 times.
It's great, man.
I was so enamored with how he was able to identify that in real time, and I thought at the time, that's an NFL play.
Yeah, that's instinct. That's it. That's instinct taking over.
Coach that.
Right. No, you can't. So I think he's going to go. I really do think D Knight's going to go. I suppose Josh Simon and Rocket Sanders become the ones that almost feel like the longest shots. And with Rocket, how worried are they about
the
injuries?
I think that has something to do with it.
And for Josh, if it gets to a point late, it might be better for him to be an undrafted free agent, because I do think he's got the skills, man. And I don't know if they think he's not quite fast enough for the NFL. There could be some of that. I'm not sure what they don't like.
I just know whenever you're that productive at this level, you can play.
Yeah.
Like you got the skills to be able to.
And let's face it, in an offense last season that continued to grow and get better, your point continues to be, a great one. He was the easy button. Well,
for the entire offense.
When Jay and Elijah are sitting here talking about him being the easy button, I guarantee you that 6- and 7-figure paid defensive coaches are going, you need to find a way to keep him from getting the ball.
Yeah, 6 is getting the ball a lot. Stop that guy.
And you couldn't. He kept finding a way to get open, and Lenoris kept finding a way to get him the ball. And you know that he can just continue to develop and do that at the next level. So we'll see. But I think we get at least 3 Gamecocks tonight. I do. I think 3 Gamecocks go off the board tonight, but we'll find out. All right, Drive Around the SEC is next. Guys, when you're getting a little bit older, you're not feeling right, and you're wondering why. I know it gets to be something for a lot of people that's just like, what do I do about this? I saw a commercial on TV for a magic pill. That should probably help me, right? I don't know. And listen, to be serious for a minute here, it could be a lot of things. It could be mental fatigue, brain fog, it could be in your love life. It could be in anything else that you do physically, working out, working in the yard. Those of you who do more things like that for a living, and it's just not where you want it to be and where it used to be. And just all of a sudden one day, something's off here. Well, go see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the Men's Clinic. You get a one-on-one consultation. They get to the root of the issues. They're experts in healthcare for men, and they're dedicated to making you feel like yourself again. Set up a consultation, 803-875-MENS. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Go see Dan Balknight in the Men's Clinic.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with 3 accidents to get to you that are causing some issues out on the roadways this Friday afternoon, starting with one on Assembly Street near Calhoun Street, one on I-20 eastbound before Clemson Road near Exit 80, and lastly, one that's been causing an issue for about an hour or so over at US 321 at Coon Store Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Friday. Welcome back in. Y'all excuse me here if you're watching on YouTube. I have to raise my microphone bar here. I need a new microphone bar, Elijah. You work on that for me?
I can get some glue. Some duct tape fixes everything.
Duct tape would actually help. I could do that. That might make the other people that use this microphone upset, though.
Just Terry and Gunner and Tyler.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. I'm not worried about Gunner. I like Tyler.
Yeah, for Tyler, we'll keep it.
And Terry's the program director, so he probably has something to say about it.
Yeah, he holds some power here.
Gunner's no big deal. Yeah, he's fine. And again, just to confirm, Bill Gunner was not eaten by an alligator at last week's Heritage.
We're rightfully concerned.
Baseball last night. Let's start you there on the drive around the SEC. Couple of ball games. Oklahoma goes to Athens and beats Georgia, number 14 over number 10.
Georgia's slipping a bit.
Yeah, and man, I was following along because I predicted a win. Missouri scored 5 in the first, man, and I was like, woo! I told you. But you know what happened after that, Elijah Campbell? A, they didn't score again, and B, Alabama scored 7 times.
How about new?
And that means Alabama beat Missouri. I'm not like pulling for Missouri, but I just said I got a hunch. I think Missouri's going to win a game this weekend. And when I saw they scored 5 in the first, I was like,
yeah.
Okay, maybe. I feel bad for them now. They are 0-19 in SEC baseball.
How do you think their fans feel?
I don't think they're like, how are the Royals doing? How are the Cardinals doing? I think that's how the fans feel.
This is the Missouri Tiger baseball fan base right now.
There are dozens of us. Dozens!
You're having too much fun.
Too much fun. Dozens of them.
Elijah figured out how to quickly put, movie and TV clips right under the computer, and now he's just...
Ball game.
You're going to be here all weekend, aren't you?
Ball game.
I'm going to get here tomorrow. There's going to be like 5 screens of it on this computer.
We've already filled up almost half of a page here.
Baseball tonight, the Gamecocks at Kentucky. Again, that comes your way at 6:15. Mississippi State will be at Auburn. Arkansas visiting Florida. Vandy at Mississippi. Tennessee at LSU. That is number 6 versus number 7, by the way, this weekend.
That's a juicy series.
A&M going to Austin. And I think they've already played one today in Athens. They have another one tonight, or just they played early? Maybe a little matinee. But Georgia beat Oklahoma 10-9.
Just kidding. They're not slipping anymore. They're back.
They're back. They'll be fine. Yeah, that's the way it works. So there's baseball for you. Interesting story developing up in Lexington, and I don't want to bore you with too many details on this, but the University of Kentucky today is or has now, and I don't know what the decision is going to look like once they decide this. But the University of Kentucky's Board of Trustees has taken up an issue today to convert the Kentucky Athletics Department, the entire athletics department, into a limited liability corporation, basically privatizing their athletics department. They want to call it Champions Blue, and according to the school, it would help them create a public-private partnership and be able to raise additional funds and handle expenses in a new era. I'll read verbatim here from the Wire Service. A board composed of business and professional sports experts will advise athletics director Mitch Barnhart and school president Eli Capilouto under the proposed model, which the school is calling one of the first in D1 sports. Said President Capilouto, quote, "We believe this is an innovative approach, a new structure and governance model that thoughtfully contemplates how we strengthen athletics, protect and promote the university, and open up new opportunities for growth. It's a foundation and model we call Champions Blue. Athletics and its success have always been the result of an incredible and productive partnership with campus. It will continue to be in the future if we seize the opportunities in front of us to meet the challenges that lie ahead." So you get some little political speak in there as well. But
delicious word salad.
I know. Yeah, well, that's what they're good at it. It could give the school what they call access to unorthodox revenue, which I probably wouldn't have said. Like,
There's got to be a better way to say that.
Yeah,
unorthodox revenue. What are we talking here?
I mean, I don't want to get into, specific hypothetical examples, but I could be funny and flippant about it, but I won't.
I kind of want to be.
But I want to be.
The devil on my shoulder is speaking
yes,
loudly right now.
Mine is too.
That sucker's got a megaphone.
Well, y'all can all just use your own imagination as to what unorthodox revenue for a Southeastern Conference athletics department could look like. Nevertheless, they say things like they could use real estate income. So basically go out and buy some apartment buildings and get some rent and put it into this fund. I don't know. I'm just saying, like things like that.
I ain't paying my rent until Kentucky starts winning football games.
But
what's my money going to?
It'll be interesting to see if this is fully accepted by their board. You know, and you get through all you know, you got to jump through, I imagine, a bunch of legal hoops and over a bunch of legal hurdles just to make sure that everything's on the up and up. But if it works, we'll see. You know, I know that I'm not going to get into the details again right now, but I know Florida, the way they structure, and Florida State too, like down in the state of Florida, their athletics departments are kind of separate arms, you know, and a lot of schools have done that where, you know, the booster club is sometimes not quite under the auspices, but it's just the booster club. It's not the whole department, you know? So this will be interesting. And at that point, for people saying, well, they may as well just break away from the schools and become pro. Are we getting ready to see that at Kentucky? Is that what this basically is going to be?
Now, you tell me, or if we have any attorneys that are listening right now, is it legal to represent or have a completely separate athletic department, not related to the university, but have it underneath the university's umbrella?
Again, that's why I say there's probably a lot of legal hoops to jump through and legal hurdles to jump over.
That feels like maybe not necessarily just a hurdle, but this is like having to jump over an offensive line when you're on the goal line and you see the running back do like the whole dive into the end zone, but all the offensive linemen are like 10 feet tall.
I was thinking more like this is Evil Knievel trying to jump the Grand Canyon.
If there were like 3 Grand Canyons.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But doable.
Yeah. I mean, it's plausible, and I kind of applaud the effort if it works. Finally, in the drive around the SEC, the state of Arkansas today has made a law called the Arkansas Student Athlete Publicity Rights Act.
That's a mouthful.
Talk about word salad. That will have funds related to NIL or revenue sharing directly from a university be exempt from state income tax. Additionally, the bill states that, now here's one that's going to, I promise you, no lawyer gets in on this one. Kidding. The bill states that financial information related to payments to athletes will be confidential and not subject to the Freedom of Information Act.
Good luck.
Yeah, I don't see that one holding up.
Good luck.
But I'm not surprised that they tried it. And basically, one of the state senators that sponsored it said, look, we hope that this brings more athletes in to help Arkansas compete, which will then bring in more revenue. And, oh, by the way, Texas and Tennessee and Florida don't have state income tax. And so this is going to help us compete when they offer NIL payments that don't have a state income tax. Now, I think it exempts them up. I think I saw that it exempts them up to like $12,500. And that they only wrote in a $500,000 state revenue deficit for next year. So they're not anticipating that this would be a whole lot of tax money to begin with. But, yeah, good luck on that FOIA one. I don't see that. That's not usually how these things work. And I don't know if the conference would be real big on that one either.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
But we'll see. Yeah, it is a bold strategy, Cotton.
See if it plays off for him.
We'll find out. That's the drive around the SEC. Final thoughts on tonight's draft and more as the post-game show rolls on. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union ready to help you out when a new set of wheels is in your future. Listen, right now, I get it. A lot of folks around the country worried about the rate environment and maybe putting off some of those big purchases, but it might well be that you just can't put it off. It's time for something new or something used. Well, Palmetto Citizens can really offer you some fantastic rates that are lower than the big banks and really help you out when it comes to your budget. No better place, really, than Palmetto Citizens to finance that next vehicle. They offer great low rates on new to 21 models. They've got some fantastic options for older vehicles as well. Many of their plans come with no payments for up to 90 days, so you can get your feet set and ready to make that purchase. Plus, they can finance over 100% of the retail or purchase price on new to 21 models. And Palmetto Citizens has additional coverage and insurance options dealerships can't beat. Check them out online. Learn more right now at palmettocitizens.org. Eleven minutes in front of 6 o'clock here on a Friday afternoon, nearly evening time. A couple of breaking things to get to you involving the Gamecocks. First, for the short term, just got word that it is pouring down rain in Lexington, Kentucky, and that the baseball game will not start on time. That's from the Kentucky baseball Twitter feed. It just says we'll monitor it. I also saw our buddy John Whittle say that it is pouring in buckets. They do play on turf, and John made a point in his tweet that could help once it stops raining. Unfortunately, it's still raining.
And if it keeps raining, not much you can do.
Well, if it keeps on raining, the levee's going to break.
Yeah, great song.
See? You should have had that on there.
Could have. Yeah, you're going to start taking some song clips in here, too.
Don't get us started. Swag and the merch. It's fire.
If there's anything that anybody should learn from today's show.
Saying that, and I was just trying to be ironic.
You knew what you were doing.
I was trying to be ironic.
I knew I was clipping that the millisecond.
No, you did. Before I was even done saying it, you were already on the computer. So Gamecock baseball will not start on time. Now, I think Derek and Stewart will still be with you at 6:15, and they'll give you a further update. So keep it on the Gamecock Radio Network, including right here in Columbia on 107.5, and they'll let you know what's up. All right? Best I can tell you. Secondly, also coming down within the last, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, the Gamecock men's basketball team has announced another transfer into the program. He is Norden Kapic. He is from Austria. He played last season at UC San Diego. They won a conference title. He started 33 of their 34 games, 39% shooter. Let's see, 30.7 from three, 75% free throw shooter. 10.7 points per game, 5.2 boards per game. So, and he's big, 6'8", 245. I guess you'd call him,
another big wing.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he a 3-4 or a 4-5?
He's a 3-4.
3-4, because he shoots.
Yeah, and I think UC San Diego had him as a 3-4. They had a really big lineup. He does force some turnovers.
Yeah?
He does. He at least he avoids turnovers. I think defensively, looking back here as well. Yeah, a decent job of forcing turnovers and blocking some shots.
So transfers in Christ Esendoko from Providence, Kobe Knox from South Florida, Michi Johnson, of course, from Ohio State, Mike Sherryamps from where was Mike? Why am I blanking on his college?
We went to Utah.
Thank you.
Fighting Keith Van Horns.
Thank you. And Elijah Strong from Boston College. No relation to Elijah Campbell.
No. We look alike, but... And by that, I mean we don't look like all.
It's like in Seinfeld. You had the same name. Jerry. They still need a 1.
Yes, definitely.
And there are still 1s in the portal. I looked that up earlier. There's still 1s in the portal, including 4-star ones, which, again, I'm not really sold on the 4-star.
Yeah, 24/7 at least, a little loose with some of the 4-star rankings of transfer portal players.
But, I mean, they're going to get one, right?
I hope so.
Right?
I hope so.
Right?
I hope so.
All right. You want to update the poll question before we get out of here?
We sure can. I want to buy me some time and some classic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I could do that.
But you know what? Look at this. I can find this faster than you would believe. So our poll question of the day. Will the Gamecocks go over, under 6.5 players selected in this year's draft? Reminder, the record for the number of Gamecocks selected in the draft is 7. So if you say over, you're saying they're either tying it or breaking it. Under right now at 66%, over at 34%. That's with 134 votes. Still 18 hours left to vote on this bad boy.
I feel like it's going to be an over. And like I say, maybe our subjectivity comes into play a little bit, or at least my own. I won't speak for anyone else. My own subjectivity. I don't think Kai Kroger will be drafted, but he would be 9th on my list of what I think are 9 draftable Gamecocks. Again, in no real particular order: Nick Emenwari, T.J. Sanders, Rocket Sanders, Kyle Kennard, Demetrius Knight, O'Donnell Fortune, Josh Simon, Tonka Hemingway, Kai Kroger. Tonight, I do think Nick Emenwari and T.J. Sanders will go, and I wonder if Kennard comes off the board in the 3rd round tonight. And I've been a little surprised at the lack of interest or maybe just talk around Rocket Sanders and Josh Simon. But like I say, it's probably my subjectivity that I saw what they were able to do last year. And
Saint it.
Yeah, but there's other dudes out there that I didn't see, that I know NFL guys did see and other people did see. So that's how it works. But it wouldn't surprise me if they got to 8. And, even Kai Kroger, like I say, he can kick, man. And he's going to kick at the next level. Is he going to get drafted to kick at the next level? That's another story. But round 2, TV coverage begins at 7 o'clock. Also, I just want to shout out, Jordan Birch is amongst like the top 75 players still available.
Now, if you consider him half a Gamecock, that might skew our poll.
Well, I got a soft spot for Jordan. I mean, he went to Hammond.
He's a Hammond guy. Yeah.
So, that's a thing for me too. And he's a good kid. I know it broke some hearts, but, still pulling for him to do well. So we'll see. All right, y'all enjoy the weekend, enjoy everything, and we'll do all this again on Monday. Swag really cool. And the merch, it's fire.